Shalom Uvracha. At the end of Parashas Nitzavim, the Torah tells us that the mitzvah, meaning the entire Torah, is not something which is distant from us. It isn't far. Lo nifleisi mimcha v'lo rechoka hi. It's not in the sky, lo b'shamayim hi. It's not across the sea. It's not me'eva layom, but rather ki karev elecha hadavar ma'od. The matter of the mitzvahs is near to us. Beficha uvilvavcha la'asosoi. It's within us, in our mouths and in our hearts. And anybody who's used to keeping the mitzvot, to keeping the Torah, should ask a very simple question at reading these psukim. Is this true? Can we really say that the Torah is easy? I mean, we have to get up in the morning with the Torah, to get up early and to go to daven. We go to bed at night with the Torah, with Kriyas Shema and with Arvis. There are many things that we would do on Shabbos that we can't do because the Torah prohibits them, or on Yom Tov, like on Shabbos. There are many things or many foods that we might eat that we're not allowed to eat because the Torah prohibits them, and so on and so forth. There are many mitzvahs, positive commandments and negative commandments. How can we say about this entire framework, this entire gamut of Torah, of mitzvahs, that this isn't far? This is right next to us. It's easy. So, of course, much has been written about this. The entire Sefer HaTanya is revolves around this pasuk, Ki karev elecha hadavar ma'od. But perhaps one can learn something about interpreting this pasuk from the continuation, from the ensuing verses. The Torah says in the very next verse after this, the Torah says, Re'ei nasaiti lefanecha hayom, I've given before you today es hachayim ve'es hatov, life and goodness, ve'es hamaves ve'es hara, and death and evil. And then a few psukim on, the Torah says, Uvacharta v'chayim, choose life, leman tichyeh, in order that you shall live, ata v'zaracha, you and your offspring. And of course the question here, what does this mean? Choose life in order that you should live. Well, of course, if this is life, then this is choosing life. What does the Torah mean? Choose life in order that you should live. But the thing is that very often there are elements in the world that present themselves to us as life. It looks like that's where the good life is. As an extreme example, think about drugs. Drugs give us a high. They give us a feeling of elation. They give us a feeling of life. But that isn't true life. It's a perception of life that is actually a false perception. This is what the Torah is telling us. There are many things in the world that lure us, that attract us. The Torah says, V'lo sasuru, don't be lured, acharei levavchem v'acharei einechem, after your hearts and your eyes, even though they look good, they look attractive, they look like life. Avodah zarah, idol worship, is a means of instant gratification. It looks like life. Says the Torah, don't go in the route, don't follow the path of instant gratification of Avodah zarah, but rather follow the path of Avodas Hashem, of relationship with God, relationship with Hashem, because that's where true life is. True contentment, true joy, true goodness does not reside in a system of instant gratification, but rather it resides in the Torah. Says the Torah, Uvacharta b'chayim, choose what the Torah defines as being life, meaning the upkeep of the mitzvahs, being in relationship with Hashem and doing everything that that relationship entails, and then leman tichya, and then you will lead a good life. You will experience the full goodness, the fullness of what a content life actually is. Ata v'zaracha, you and your offspring. And maybe this tells us something about ki karev elecha hadavar ma'od, that this matter is close to us. Yes, it isn't always easy, just like giving up drugs, someone who's addicted, chas v'shalom, to a drug, or to some other bad habit. It's not easy to give it up. It's hard to pull yourself away. Of course it isn't easy. But once we manage to do it, it feels good. It feels like it's the real thing. It's the real life. It feels like it's us. Beficha uvilvavcha la'asoisoi. Deep within us, we have the intuition. We have the feeling that this is true life. That life with Torah is the real thing. It's the real taste of life, and not like other tastes of life that people try to market to us or to lure us towards, that pull us away from Torah. It isn't always easy, but it's always close. Ki karov elecha. It's always something that we can identify as being true life, as being true goodness. When we daven 3 times a day, in Moedim, when we give thanks to Hashem, we say, Hatov Shimcha. Hashem's name is goodness. What does it mean, Hatov Shimcha? In which way is Hashem's name good? Where do we find that Hashem is called good? We find it in Parashas Kisisa, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives forgiveness, atonement to Moshe Rabbeinu on behalf of the Jewish people after the sin of the golden calf, the Chet HaEgel. And then Moshe Rabbeinu asks to see Hashem, to understand. Hareini no, he says. He wants to see Hashem, to understand, to fully fathom what Hashem is all about, to see Hashem. And Hashem says, Anoichi avir kol tuvi al panecha. I'll pass kol tuvi, all of my goodness, before you or before my countenance. Depends how you interpret the psukim. But all of my goodness is there. The karasi b'shem Hashem, b'shem avaya. The Shem Hashem, the name of Hashem, represents the full goodness, the kol tuvi. Everything that's good in the world draws from the Shem Hashem. Every goodness in the world draws from God, draws from His name. The Gemara in Psachim says, that's why we can't say Shem Havaya nowadays. Shem Havaya is unable, we're unable to actually pronounce it, because the fullness of Hashem's good, His goodness, isn't revealed today in the world. And therefore Shem Havaya is not accessible. We can't pronounce it, we can't say it. However, every goodness that we do have, even though it's only partial, derives from Hashem, from Hashem's name. That's what the psukim here are telling us. Ubachata b'chayim, choose the life that the Torah gives us, leman tichyeh, because that will be a good life in every sense. It will be a good life in the deepest human sense, in the deepest way that we're able to identify as a good life, even though there's competition, even though other systems and other temptations and other attractions can take us in other different directions. But this direction, says the Torah, is the one that's true. It's the one that's within us. Ki karei velecha hadavar ma'od. And even when it's hard to get up in the morning, even when it's hard to keep Shabbos, and even when it's hard to be in a relationship that is demanding, a relationship that is both meaningful and deep and demanding, but still, that's true. It's actually in the depths of each and every one of us. And when we're on that track, then we experience it, then we know it's true, and we know it's real. And yes, even those of us who walk on the track are nonetheless tempted to look outside. Of course, we all slip up sometimes, but nonetheless, says the Torah, Ki karev elecha, according to the Ramban, this refers to the mitzvah of tshuva. It's easy to go back. Maybe easy is not the right word, but it's intuitive. It's within us. It's close to us. Ki karev elecha hadavar ma'od. And in the build-up to the Yomim Noraim, to Rosh Hashanah, and to Yom Kippur, this is what's expected of us. Rosh Hashanah is a day on which we turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and we say, Hashem, you are our King, meaning we trust you, meaning all of the goodness that we have derives from you. And being in that relationship defines the goodness of life for each and every one of us. And with that message, that even though it's not always easy, but it's always true, and it's always intuitive, it always feels right, even though it's not always instant gratification. With that message, Yirmiyah Hashem, we should come to Rosh Hashanah, we should all be Zoiche, we should all merit to have a Ksiva v'Chasima Tova, and a Shana Tova u'Mesuka, a good year on which we feel, in a tangible sense, the sweetness of God, the goodness of Torah life. It should be a wonderful year for all of us together.